Could you please present yourself and the school that you're looking for?
Sure. My name is Rebekah Melville, and I represent the Yale School of Management.
Okay, I would like to start with a couple of questions about the admission to your school. What kind of questions should applicants ask the business school representative so that they can make a good impression during the interview?
During the interview, questions that would make that would be more compelling than others would show that you've done your homework already on the program of choice. So for Yale, that means that you've spent some significant time getting to know the program on the website, and that your questions then are going to go the next level deeper than what is on the website. So our sense would be that if you have bothered to come to New Haven for an interview or a Skype interview, say from here in Paris, that you really want to get to know the program more, because the way that we interview students is at a point in our process where we're indicating that we're interested in possibly admitting you. So we really want to have you use this opportunity to get to know us better than just a website.
I see. What are some common mistakes that MBA candidates could easily avoid during their application?
That's a great question, and sometimes there's lots of little mistakes. I think the general theme is that it's really hard to put together a perfect application, and everybody makes a few mistakes, and that's fine. I think the important thing is, and what we see people doing a lot of time, is misusing the important real estate. Think of it as your application as a puzzle, and each piece of puzzle is additive and adding different values, and so you really want to build a case for yourself on why there's a spot for you in the class of 2020 or 2021 versus somebody else. And the only way you can do that in such a limited framework is by not repeating yourself a lot, using all of those different pieces in a way that is additive and reflective of who you are and the value you bring to the program.
Would you advise applicants to work with a coach while preparing their application?
We certainly acknowledge that it is a big industry. Most schools don't absolutely love the industry in general, but we do know that there are important players in the space. I think it depends on the coach, personally. And so, the coach can, typically people who work in this space know multiple schools very well. And sometimes they can be helpful to prospective candidates to guide them towards one school or another that may be a better fit for them. I think most times, coaches will often spend too much time refining people's essays to the candidate's detriments as well. So for certain things, yes, if you're really in the beginning stages, perhaps. But in general, you're probably not going to find many schools who are encouraging of this side industry.
Speaking about the essays, how many essays do you require, and what is most important?
So we have one essay, only one essay. But we do also have video questions, which we kind of think of as a second essay, more like a free-form, instantaneous essay. But our actual written essay is one question. And what we're looking for is to get a little bit deeper of a sense of who you are, what you value the most, and what actions you've taken towards those beliefs, those values, your self-discipline, your conscientiousness, and that sort of thing. No one gets in on the basis of a fantastic essay. This is not a PhD in English literature, but it is another valuable piece of your application, again, as you put that puzzle together to kind of make yourself shine a little bit more.
I see. What do you look for in a CV, and how is it different from a job application?
That's a great question. So it is actually pretty different from a job application CV. So first of all, for U.S. business schools, we don't want birthdays and we don't want pictures. But what we're looking for is, and again, if you're an engineer, we're not trying to hire you for your engineering skills. So the resume is oftentimes one of the first things the admissions committee will see, and it helps us put your background in chronological order and it helps us immediately to understand what industries you've worked in and the impact that you've had on those industries and in those positions. So rather than focusing on what you do on a daily basis, focus on the impact that you've had in each of those roles. Your resume really should be only one page.
And if you allow me a couple of questions about the admission test, which test do you require? GMAT, GRE, or some school specific?
No, we have no school-specific test. We don't actually require any test of English as a second language, but we do require either the GMAT or the GRE, and we do look upon them equally.
Do you have any preferences between them?
No, we look upon them pretty equally. The math on the GMAT can be considered a little tougher. So our expectation would be that you would do a little bit better on the GRE if you were going to take the GRE. So that being said, other than that, we look on them very equally, and we really don't have a preference.
And how important is the test score for getting into your MBA program?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, one of I would think the three sort of large buckets would be academics, and in that piece would be the test scores. Nobody, again, gets in just because they have a great essay, and nobody gets in just because they have a great score. We do turn down people with great scores all the time. That's the luxury of doing admissions at an elite business school. But it is an important part, and you can see from I would recommend everybody go to the school's websites that they're interested in applying to, just to get the sense of the range of test scores that are accepted. It shows us, there's a lot of research that GMAC has done that show in particular how the GMAT correlates to success in the first year of the MBA program. And the whole idea here is to make you challenged in the classroom, not overwhelmed. So that's kind of what we look for in the GMAT score or the GRE score.
What do the test score reveal to the admission committee? Do you favor some test sections over others?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It depends on the candidate a little bit. In general, we're going to look at every single score, that writing, the IR if you take the GR, the quant, the verbal. In many cases, we'll actually read the written part as well to see what the argument is and to see how that was made and developed, and to look for the English there. So it kind of depends. If English isn't your first language, then we're far more likely to read those essays. And we also don't expect you to have such a robust score as somebody like me, where English is our first language. If you have never taken a quantitative class in your life and your job has nothing to do with numbers, then we're going to look a little bit more at the quantitative score of your test, whichever test you take, because we want to know again that you'll be that you're not going to struggle in a class. It's allowed to be hard. It's not allowed to be so hard that you won't be successful.
Okay, so how does a top test score affect the chances of admission and scholarship?
No one ever said, gee, your score is just too high, right? Again, that's not why you're going to get in, but it is always helpful, and I think everybody wants really smart people who in their program, and one indicator of that is a great test score. I think anecdotally, in order to get a scholarship, it's probably slightly more weighted towards people with stronger scores as well, so it probably does increase your chance of a scholarship. But there are many other factors that go into that as well.
If you allow me one last question, for you, what is the biggest advantage of being on AccessMBA event?
Being at an AccessMBA event, I think that's the convening power of AccessMBA. That your organization can get a lot of very outstanding candidates in one place and maybe introduce them to schools that they maybe never considered because they were too far away or they just didn't know about them in advance. So it's really the convening power.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, you're welcome. Thanks.